Michael Vaughan stared at his computer screen, lines of code blurring before his tired eyes. At 35, he was a respected software engineer at Tech Innovate, known for his dedication and integrity. His broad shoulders hunched over the keyboard, a reminder of his days as a Marine before finding his calling in technology. Across the office, Catherine Anders caught his eye and smiled sympathetically. She was new to the company, a vivacious blonde with a quick wit that had quickly endeared her to the team. Michael enjoyed their easy friendship, a bright spot in long workdays. As he packed up to leave, Michael's phone buzzed with a text from his wife, Isabella, working late again. Don't wait up. He sighed, their once close relationship feeling increasingly strained by her demanding job as a marketing executive. Across town, Isabella Vaughan sat in her sleek corner office, poring over campaign strategies. At 33, she was ambitious and driven, climbing the corporate ladder with determination. Her boss, Pete Davenport, leaned against her desk, his expensive suit and confident smirk a stark contrast to Michael's modest demeanor. Great work on the Johnson account, Izzy, Pete said, his hand lingering on her shoulder. Let's celebrate over drinks. Isabella hesitated, then nodded. Just one. I should get home to Michael. As they left the office, neither noticed the janitor watching them with interest. Little did any of them know, the choices made that evening would set in motion a chain of events that would test their loyalties, morals, and the very foundations of their relationships. The annual Tech Innovate company picnic buzzed with activity. Michael flipped burgers at the grill, chatting easily with co-workers. His eyes scanned the crowd, finally spotting Isabella deep in conversation with Pete. Something about their body language made him uneasy. Catherine approached, offering a cold beer. Your wife seems quite comfortable with the boss, she observed. Michael shrugged, trying to appear nonchalant. They work closely together. As the afternoon wore on, Michael couldn't shake his growing discomfort. He excused himself to use the restroom, taking a shortcut behind a cluster of trees. Voices drifted towards him, Isabella and Pete. We can't keep this up, Isabella was saying, her voice low and urgent. It's not fair to Michael. He doesn't have to know, Pete replied smoothly. Think of your career, Izzy. Think of our future. Michael froze, his heart pounding. Surely he had misheard. But as he peered around the tree, he saw Pete pull Isabella close, their lips meeting in a passionate kiss. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Michael stumbled backwards, nearly colliding with Catherine. Whoa, are you okay? She asked, steadying him. You look like you've seen a ghost. Michael opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. How could he possibly explain what he had just witnessed? And more importantly, what was he going to do about it? You might think Michael would confront them immediately, but what he does next will surprise you. In the days following the picnic, Michael found himself in a daze, going through the motions of daily life while his mind raced. He watched Isabella closely, searching for signs of guilt or deception, but she seemed unchanged, perhaps a bit more distracted than usual, but nothing overtly suspicious. He considered confronting her, but fear held him back. What if he had misunderstood? What if accusing her destroyed their marriage? And so, he said nothing, the secret knowledge eating away at him. At work, Michael threw himself into his projects with renewed vigor, staying late and coming in early. Catherine noticed the change in him, concern evident in her green eyes. Is everything okay, Michael? She asked one evening as they worked side by side on a tricky bit of code. You seem different lately. Michael hesitated, then found himself confiding in her. Catherine listened without judgment, offering sympathy and support. As the weeks passed, they grew closer, finding solace in each other's company. Meanwhile, Isabella's behavior became increasingly erratic. She cancelled dinner plans at the last minute, came home with expensive new clothes she couldn't explain, and grew defensive when Michael asked about her day at work. One night, unable to sleep, Michael decided to check their joint bank account. What he found made his blood run cold, large withdrawals and transfers to an account he didn't recognize. Was Isabella preparing to leave him? Across town, Catherine faced her own marital troubles. Her husband, Tom, had grown suspicious of her late nights at the office and her frequent mentions of Michael. Their arguments escalated, leaving Catherine feeling trapped and misunderstood. As autumn turned to winter, the tension in both households reached a breaking point. Michael knew he needed to confront Isabella, but each time he worked up the courage, something held him back. Was it fear of losing her? Or was he simply delaying the inevitable? Just when Michael thought things couldn't get more complicated, Pete called him into his office with an unexpected proposition. "I've been impressed with your work, Michael," Pete said, leaning back in his leather chair. "How would you like to lead our new cybersecurity division? It comes with a significant pay raise, of course." Michael stared at him, stunned. Was this a genuine offer, or was Pete trying to manipulate him? And if he accepted, how could he work alongside the man who was betraying him? As Michael left Pete's office, his mind reeling, he nearly collided with Isabella in the hallway. For a moment, their eyes met, and Michael saw a flicker of something. Guilt? Fear? Before he could say anything, she hurried past him, leaving him more confused than ever. That evening, as Michael drove home, his phone buzzed with a text from Catherine, "Need to talk. Can we meet?" He pulled over, his heart racing. What now? As he typed a response, he couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. If you're feeling frustrated with Michael's indecision, hang on, the next revelation will force him to take action. The cafe was quiet as Michael slid into the booth across from Catherine. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her usually immaculate appearance disheveled. "Tom kicked me out," she said without preamble. "He's convinced we're having an affair." Michael's jaw dropped. "But we're not. We're just friends." Catherine nodded miserably. "I know, but he won't believe me. I didn't know where else to go." As they talked, Michael felt a mix of sympathy for Catherine and guilt over the secrets he'd been keeping from Isabella. He offered Catherine their spare room until she could sort things out, a decision he knew would complicate matters further. When Michael arrived home with Catherine in tow, Isabella's reaction was unexpected. Instead of anger or suspicion, she seemed almost relieved. She welcomed Catherine warmly, showing her to the guest room with an enthusiasm that left Michael baffled. Over the next few weeks, an uneasy routine developed. Michael and Catherine carpooled to work, their friendship deepening despite the awkward living situation. Isabella threw herself into a new marketing campaign, working later than ever. One evening, as Michael and Catherine shared a quiet dinner, his phone rang. It was Isabella, her voice trembling. "Michael, I need to tell you something," she said. "Can you meet me at the office?" Heart pounding, Michael agreed. As he drove to Tech Innovate, his mind raced with possibilities. Was she finally going to confess to the affair? But when he arrived, he found Isabella sitting in the conference room, her face pale and drawn. Pete sat beside her, his usual swagger replaced by an uncharacteristic nervousness. "Michael, please sit down," Isabella said softly. "There's something you need to know. You might think you know what's coming, but trust me, the next revelation will change everything." "I'm pregnant," Isabella blurted out. Michael felt as if the floor had dropped out from under him. "What? How? I mean, we haven't." "It's Pete's," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. The room spun as Michael struggled to process this information. Pete cleared his throat awkwardly. "I want to do right by Isabella and the baby," he said. "I'm prepared to offer a generous settlement if you're willing to step aside." Michael stared at them, rage and betrayal warring with shock and disbelief. Without a word, he stood and walked out, leaving Isabella calling his name behind him. The drive home was a blur. Michael found himself pulling into his driveway, unsure how he'd even gotten there. Catherine was waiting up, concern etched on her face. "What happened?" she asked, taking in his shell-shocked expression. As Michael recounted the evening's events, Catherine listened with growing horror. When he finished, she pulled him into a fierce hug. "I'm so sorry, Michael," she whispered. "You don't deserve this." In that moment of vulnerability, something shifted between them. Michael found himself looking at Catherine with new eyes, seeing not just a friend, but a woman who understood him, who had stood by him through this nightmare. Before either of them could think better of it, they were kissing, years of pent-up emotion and shared pain pouring out in a desperate embrace. It wasn't until much later, as they lay tangled in sheets and regret, that the full weight of their actions hit them. "Oh God," Catherine whispered. "What have we done?" As dawn broke, Michael and Catherine agreed to keep their indiscretion a secret. But secrets have a way of coming to light, and little did they know, their moment of weakness had been observed by someone who would use that information to devastating effect. The annual charity gala was in full swing, the ballroom glittering with sequins and forced smiles. Michael adjusted his bow tie, feeling out of place among the city's elite. Beside him, Catherine looked stunning in an emerald gown, but her eyes were wary as they scanned the room. Across the dance floor, Isabella and Pete made a striking couple, her pregnancy now visible beneath her flowing dress. Michael's jaw clenched at the sight of them, the wound still raw. As the evening wore on, tension simmered beneath the surface of polite conversation. Tom Anders arrived, his eyes narrowing as he spotted Catherine with Michael. Pete grew increasingly tipsy, his laugh too loud, his hands too familiar as they roamed Isabella's waist. It was Pete who finally shattered the fragile piece, clinking his glass for attention. "I have an announcement to make," he slurred, ignoring Isabella's attempts to quiet him. "Isabella and I are in love. We're having a baby, and we're getting married." The room erupted in confused murmurs. Michael felt all eyes turn to him, pity and curiosity plain on their faces. But before he could react, another voice cut through the chaos. "That's not the only secret being kept around here," Tom snarled, striding towards Michael and Catherine. "Tell them about your little affair, or shall I?" Catherine went pale. "Tom, please, it's not what you think, dash." But Tom was beyond reason. He lunged at Michael, fists flying. The two men grappled, crashing into a table laden with champagne flutes. Women screamed, security guards rushed forward, and in the melee, no one noticed Isabella clutching her stomach, her face contorted in pain. It wasn't until Pete's triumphant laughter rang out that everyone froze. "You fools," he sneered, suddenly looking very sober. "You've played right into my hands. Isabella, darling, tell them the truth." All eyes turned to Isabella, who stood trembling, tears streaming down her face. "I'm not pregnant," she whispered. "It was all a lie. Pete was blackmailing me. He said he'd ruin Michael's career if I didn't go along with it." The room erupted in shocked gasps. Michael stared at Isabella, his mind reeling. "But why?" Pete's smile was cold. "Mergers and acquisitions, my friend. Your little company is sitting on some very valuable patents. With you out of the way, it would have been ripe for a hostile takeover." As security guards moved to restrain Pete, Michael found himself face to face with Isabella. The love of his life, the woman he thought he knew better than anyone. A stranger. "Michael, I'm so sorry," she sobbed. "I thought I was protecting you. I never meant for it to go this far." But before Michael could respond, a scream pierced the air. Catherine crumpled to the floor, clutching her chest. "Someone call an ambulance." Tom shouted, all anger forgotten as he cradled his wife. As chaos erupted once more, Michael found himself at a crossroads. The choices he made in the next few moments would shape the rest of his life. You might think this is the end of the story, but trust me, the biggest twist is yet to come. The hospital waiting room was a study in tension. Michael paced restlessly, his tuxedo jacket discarded, shirt stained with champagne and blood from the brawl. Isabella sat hunched in a corner, makeup streaked with tears. Tom stood by the window, his face a mask of worry and regret. A doctor emerged, his expression grave. "Mrs. Anders suffered a stress-induced heart attack," he explained. "We've stabilized her, but the next 24 hours will be critical." The news hit like a physical blow. Michael sank into a chair, head in his hands. How had things spiraled so out of control? Across town, Pete Davenport was learning the consequences of his actions. As police led him from the gala in handcuffs, reporters swarmed, cameras flashing. His carefully cultivated image crumbled in an instant, years of unethical business practices laid bare. For Isabella, the cost was equally high. As news of the scandal broke, her professional reputation was in tatters. Colleagues she'd thought were friends now shunned her, her promising career reduced to ashes. In the harsh light of day, all four found themselves facing difficult truths. Michael grappled with his feelings of betrayal, both by Isabella's deception and his own moment of weakness with Catherine. Isabella confronted the consequences of her choices, the price of ambition etched in the pain on Michael's face. Tom wrestled with his own culpability, his jealousy and mistrust having pushed Catherine away and possibly contributed to her condition. And Catherine, unconscious and unaware, lay at the center of it all, her fate uncertain. As morning dawned, bringing with it the promise of difficult conversations and hard decisions, none of them could have predicted the shocking turn of events that was about to upend their lives once more. As Michael stepped out of the hospital for some fresh air, a familiar face caught his eye. It was Johnson, the janitor from Tech Innovate, looking decidedly UN janitorial in a sharp suit. "Mr. Vaughan," Johnson said, extending his hand. "I think it's time we had a chat." Bewildered, Michael followed Johnson to a nearby park bench. What happened next would change everything. "I'm not really a janitor," Johnson explained. "I'm an undercover agent with the FBI's cybercrime division. We've been investigating Pete Davenport for months." Michael listened in stunned silence as Johnson laid out a complex web of corporate espionage, money laundering, and blackmail that went far beyond Tech Innovate. "Your wife stumbled onto some of Pete's illegal activities," Johnson continued. "She's been working with us, feeding us information. The pregnancy ruse was part of our plan to get Pete to incriminate himself." Michael's mind reeled. "But why didn't she tell me?" "To protect you," Johnson said simply. "The less you knew, the safer you were. But now, we need your help to bring down the entire operation." As Johnson outlined the dangerous but crucial role Michael could play, a realization dawned. The choices that had seemed so clear-cut just hours ago were now cast in an entirely new light. Isabella hadn't betrayed him, she'd been protecting him all along, at great personal cost. And now, he had the chance to not only save his marriage but also to be the hero he'd always aspired to be. With renewed purpose, Michael stood. "What do you need me to do?" As he walked back into the hospital, prepared to face whatever challenges lay ahead, Michael couldn't help but wonder, how would Catherine and Tom fit into this new reality? And more importantly, were they all ready for the risks that came with taking down a criminal empire? 1 year later, Michael stood at the podium, accepting an award for his role in bringing down one of the largest cybercrime rings in the country. In the audience, Isabella beamed with pride, their rekindled love stronger for having weathered the storm. Beside her sat Catherine and Tom, their own relationship slowly healing as they learned to trust again. Catherine's health scare had been a wake-up call, prompting both to reassess their priorities. As Michael concluded his speech, he locked eyes with Isabella, remembering the long nights of rebuilding trust, the tears and laughter as they rediscovered each other. They had emerged from the crucible of their ordeal stronger, wiser, and more deeply in love than ever before. The applause faded as Michael rejoined his wife and friends. Catherine gave him a warm hug, whispering, "You did it, hero." Tom shook his hand firmly, the last traces of animosity long since faded. As they left the ceremony, Michael couldn't help but marvel at how different their lives were now. Tech Innovate had been restructured, with Michael and Isabella at the helm of a new, ethically run company. Their innovative cybersecurity solutions, born from their harrowing experience, were revolutionizing the industry. That evening, as they gathered for a celebratory dinner at Michael and Isabella's home, the conversation flowed easily. They laughed about the absurdity of their past misunderstandings, marveled at the unexpected turns their lives had taken, and toasted to new beginnings. As the night wore on, Isabella pulled Michael aside, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "I have some news," she whispered, placing his hand on her stomach. "This time, it's real." Michael's face lit up with joy, and as he embraced his wife, he knew that whatever challenges the future held, they would face them together, stronger for the trials they had overcome. The two couples bid each other good night, each heading home to their own hard-won happiness. As Michael and Isabella lay in bed that night, talking excitedly about their future child, Michael reflected on the tumultuous journey that had brought them to this point. "You know," he said softly, stroking Isabella's hair, "I never thought I'd be grateful for the worst year of our lives. But without it, we might never have discovered how strong we really are." Isabella nodded, snuggling closer. "We lost our way for a while, but we found each other again. That's what matters." As they drifted off to sleep, Michael's last thought was one of gratitude for second chances, for true friends, and for the unbreakable bond of love that had seen them through their darkest hours. Little did they know, their greatest adventure was just beginning. As they embarked on the journey of parenthood, they would face new challenges, unexpected joys, and moments that would test their newfound strength. But with their hard-won wisdom and deepened love, Michael and Isabella were ready for whatever life had in store. And so, dear reader, as we close this chapter of their story, we invite you to reflect on your own relationships. What hidden strengths might you discover in the face of adversity? How might the challenges you face today lead to a brighter, more authentic tomorrow? Remember, every great love story has its trials. It's how we face them that defines us. So cherish those closest to you, be brave in the face of hardship, and never lose faith in the power of love to overcome all obstacles. As for Michael, Isabella, Catherine, and Tom, their story isn't over. Life has a way of throwing new curveballs when we least expect them. Who knows what the future holds for these friends who have been through so much together? One thing is certain, whatever comes their way, they'll face it with the resilience, honesty, and unwavering support they've learned to rely on. And isn't that, after all, the true meaning of family? Stay tuned, dear readers. The next chapter of their lives promises to be just as thrilling, heartwarming, and surprising as the last. After all, the greatest adventures often come after we think the story has ended. Until next time, may your own life be filled with love, laughter, and the courage to face whatever challenges come your way. For in the end, it's not the absence of struggles that defines a happy ending, but the strength we find in overcoming them together. As we close this chapter in the lives of Michael, Isabella, Catherine, and Tom, we invite you, our dear viewers, to reflect on your own journeys of love, trust, and redemption. Their story reminds us that even in our darkest moments, hope and second chances are possible if we're brave enough to fight for them. Now, we want to hear from you. How did this story resonate with your own experiences? What lessons do you think we can all learn from the challenges these characters faced? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Did you predict any of the twists? Which character did you relate to most? We'd love to hear your perspective. If you found value in this story, please give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing to our channel. We're constantly bringing you compelling narratives that explore the complexities of human relationships and the triumph of the human spirit. Hit that notification bell to stay updated on our latest uploads. You never know, the next video might be just the inspiration you need in your own life journey. Remember, every like, comment, and share helps us reach more people with these important messages of love, forgiveness, and personal growth. Thank you for joining us on this emotional rollercoaster. Until next time, keep believing in the power of love and the strength within you to overcome any obstacle. Your own epic love story might be just around the corner. Stay tuned, stay inspired, and keep spreading love in your corner of the world. See you in the next video.